Yo, 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 welcome back to the Booth Seats Sports Pod. Just two bros smarter than the average Joe, and we talk a little bit about sports.
Yes, sir.
Alright, so this week, not a lot in sports, but we do have a little bit of a jam-packed little sheet to talk about today. We can start with the recap in sports, bro. You want to talk? You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So Joel Embiid, um, got injured, his knee, his left meniscus, and it was kind of a big deal about if he was going to do surgery or not, and then he did officially undergo surgery. So that means that he's definitely not going to be in consideration for his second MVP. So that does leave a lot of candidates open for contention, and I think um, people like Luca are going to take advantage of that while he's gone. And also, I mean, your number one guy goes out. I hope they can at least be fine until the All-Star break.
Yeah, I definitely that does suck for the 76ers. I think they're the 4th seed in the East right now, with Joel, and then Joel going out is definitely going to knock them down probably a seed or so. But I mean, Tyrese Maxey's an all-star, so he should be able to hold his own and carry his weight. They also have Tobias Harris that's playing great, so I think they'll figure it out in Philadelphia. That does suck that Joel went down, and we'll talk a little bit more about that 65 game thing here in a bit. Cavs extend their winning streak. Best start to a calendar year in franchise history.
Yeah, dude, it's so fun watching them. It's just one of those Cleveland narratives where you get two guys out for a long time and everyone starts counting you out, but you just everyone knows what they have in the locker room and they go out there and show what they're about. And I think they're 13-2 over the last 15 games. I mean, their schedule hasn't been the hardest in the world, but to get it done without two of the best players on your team and in a point in the season where games were really crucial, I think they were hovering around 500 before this streak started, and now I think they're third in the East and one half of a game away from being the second seed. So it's really fun watching them right now.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you expect is capable from the Cavs coming into the year, but like you said, with injuries with to Mobley and Garland, it's definitely not something that you would think of them being at this point of the year. It kind of fits with what the Browns did this year. I'm not gonna lie. But we'll keep it in the East. Bucks 1-3 since hiring Doc Rivers. Not a great start. Does this kind of just show that the coach in Adrian Griffith did have a little bit of an impact on that team?
For sure. Um, I think it's just kind of karma for letting go of a head coach that took you to a 13 or 30-13 record. I Yeah, it's hard for any coach to take a locker room, let alone take it halfway through the season. And does this beg the question on if Doc Rivers is capable of handling a team like this? Is it the team itself, or is this a question on did the Bucks front office construct a team that was built to win big games? I know they have a lot of wins. Obviously, they still have a positive record, but going 1-3 when they hired Doc Rivers, it seems to show a little bit of inconsistency and maybe a sneak peek of maybe what the playoffs could look like if this continues.
Yeah. I definitely to touch on the Doc Rivers thing. With the All-Star game too, Doc Rivers got asked to be the East All-Star head coach, which comes with a ring if they win, and also um, a cash prize for the winning coach as well. He did say he was going to give it to Adrian Griffins, but the fact that the NBA reached out to Doc Rivers and asked him to be a part of this, I think is kind of messed up. You could easily go for the Cavs head coach. I'm pretty sure Boston's head coach declined, but at the end of the day, the Bucks will probably figure their way into the playoffs as a top 4 seed. Giannis and Lillard are going to have to do their thing to get them there, but they'll still be a threat in the playoffs. We can
Yeah.
send it down to Southern Cal. Wyndham Clark, this is more my territory, but set a new course record at Pebble Beach, shooting a 60, 12 under in his third round on Saturday. The tournament ended up being canceled, and Wyndham got the cash prize of 3.6 mil. But This is crazy. The history that Pebble Beach has, beside everything else, for him to go out there and shoot a 60 on a wet day, course was not dry at all. Balls were not rolling. Balls were actually plugging into the fairway every time he hit a drive. And this could have been a lot lower. I'm not gonna lie. He on 16, 17, and 18. 17, he came up literally an inch short from the cup for birdie, and that would have put him at like a 59. And then on 18, he had a 26-foot putt that rolled to about 2 inches from the pin, and he went up and tapped it in for the historic round. Kudos and a round of applause for Wyndham Clark, because that's not something we're going to see um, that often, and really not going to see in the near future, because that's a record that has been held for a hot minute.
I'm not really a golf guy, like I said, but um, I can recognize greatness in any sport. So, uh, good shit, buddy.
We can head over to the Clash. This is more your territory.
Okay, yeah. So last week we mentioned the Clash at the Coliseum, the introduction to the NASCAR season. Doesn't mean anything in terms of points. It was just a cash prize and just to get people's eyes on the NASCAR season as it starts. Um, I never liked it at the Coliseum. If any of you have watched it, it's basically shoving a bunch of cars that are like the most powerful thing you've ever seen, and you're putting them in a track about the size of a high school. So it's really chaotic. The cars don't even go above 85 miles an hour, and there's more cautions in one race than there probably will be all year. Obviously, that's dramatic, but you just get the idea of how insane racing this small of a track is. And there was only 20 cars because you can't even fit the whole field in there.
Yeah, I know.
But
No, you're good. Keep going.
okay. So in terms of the actual racing, a few notable things. Ryan Blaney, I think he started 23rd. I think he was the very last person to qualify. He went from 23rd to third, so that's really impressive on a short track like that. Obviously, Denny Hamlin won the race. Kind of gifted it because of the. I'll get into this a little more later, but the conflict between Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs. They were in the top two pretty much at the very end, and they got into it. And there was a bunch of other people that were trying to get up. Kyle Busch, who I chose last week as the guy to win it, actually got second. So I was pretty impressed with how I did on that. He couldn't get it done though, because after the restarts, Denny just got ahead. And yeah, I would say it was a very boring race. If you didn't watch it, you didn't miss much. But I will recommend watching next week because Daytona it will look a million times better than what we saw.
Yeah, I know you watched the whole race, and I watched about the last 36 laps, and watching it was like not even that enjoyable. Cautions every felt like every 4 to 8 laps. No movement in the field really. Maybe a car passing one car every once in a while, but it wasn't fun. I like going fast and left, and that was not fast. So, um, we can kick it over to the NFL. Only NFL talk we have today. Last week we covered a lot about the Super Bowl. Not much news coming out of the Super Bowl with injuries. Nothing really. So we're gonna leave our opinions from last week and we're gonna take those forward. But we have some NFL news on some coaching hires. You want to start?
Yeah. So Dan Quinn, Cowboys defense coordinator, and you might have noticed him as the Atlanta Falcons head coach there for a while, has taken the Commanders head coaching position after Ron Rivera got fired this past season. I don't get it really. I know he was obviously had a good defense in Dallas, but I think if you were the Commanders, I probably would have taken a shot at Vrabel or Belichick. I know probably they wouldn't go, but I mean, at least give him a shot. I mean, I don't hate Dan Quinn, but nothing he did in Atlanta, other than the 2016 season where they made the Super Bowl, really impressed me. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, no. I think Dan Quinn is a good DC. I don't know if he's a good head coach for this job in particular. Washington ranked low in defense and offensive stats throughout the year, and their offense was terrible. I would have went after a more of an offensive-minded head coach and then brought in a well-established DC. But as you said, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, definitely didn't even bat an eye at this job. This is a job that is way under what they deserve, and I think we're not going to see either one of them on a field next year, but we'll definitely see them in the future again. But next up, I personally think this was a good hire, but McDonald, Ravens DC to the Seahawks. We talked about this last week that rumors were that he was going to get signed when the Ravens lost, and shortly after we ended the pod last week, it was official. So you got any words on that one?
Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna get a good coach. If anyone watched the Ravens defense, they were definitely top two, and I would say arguably top one. Um, they just, yeah, I mean, they were just a stouted group. I mean, the talent that was on the team, and I think his schemes worked really well with allowing the talent to do its thing. I have no negative things to say about how he might be as a head coach. We're just gonna have to see. But I think from the Seahawks point of view, if it wasn't Vrabel or Belichick, I think that McDonald was probably the third best head coach. So I think they did their job in getting a good guy.
Yeah, and I've said this the last 2 weeks, and this is gonna be the last time I say it. I said that Vrabel at first because I thought that Seattle deserved a defensive-minded head coach, and then when Mac McDonald was rumored, I said Mac McDonald because, as I've said the last couple weeks, the Seahawks are a team that thrive on defense, thrive of their Legion of Boom. The 12th man is huge, and going out and getting a respected DC as your new head coach, I think was a great fit. And that was all the head coaching news. There's no more head coaching spots. And now we're just going to fill you in on a couple OCs and, well, one OC that got replaced this week.
Yeah. So Eric Bieniemy, who was the offense coordinator of the Commanders and most notably was the OC for the Chiefs for a few years. He's getting replaced as the OC by Cliff Kingsbury, who actually was supposed to take the Raiders OC job, but pulled out last second to go to the Commanders. I don't know why you would do that, and I don't even know why Bieniemy took the head coach or the offensive coordinator job from the Commanders in the first place. I think maybe he saw a head coaching opportunity there, but um, he leaves, and then the former Cardinals head coach that left in a dumpster fire comes back into a dumpster fire of a team. So I'm sure that'll go really good.
Yeah, so Cliff Kingsbury, possible reasons for wanting to go to Commanders. Commanders hold the number 2 pick in this year's draft. Kingsbury's just coming off a stint with the with USC and just coached Caleb Williams for a year. I know me and you would like to see it, but if Washington could trade up to get that number 1 pick and select Caleb Williams, I'm sure that is a selling point for Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm sure that the Commanders had front office was explaining that to him, and that might have been a reason why he backed out of the Raiders job. But other than that, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the fit is. Like you said, he left a dumpster fire a couple years ago, and now he's back at a dumpster fire. So we'll see how that goes. This is one thing that I really wanted to talk about. I know we got a good amount of NBA on the script today, but the 65 game requirement for rewards in All Pro honors, well, All NBA honors, and I wanted to talk about how bad I think it is. First off, I think requirement is good. I think that that's something that can be done. I also think that all NBA should be held to a vote also between the players, because at the end of the day, the players know who the top 15 players are in the NBA. But one instance that I feel is getting wronged here, Joel, obviously we talked about earlier about he's gonna miss the maximum 17 games due to this meniscus injury, going into surgery. But without a doubt, Embiid has been one of the 2 best players in the NBA this year with Luka Doncic. The dude is averaging like 36 and 12, numbers that surpassed the last 10 MVPs, way better than unanimous MVP Steph Curry in the past. Another one I think is getting shorted by this is Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese has definitely established himself as a first team, maybe second team player this year in the NBA, and he is now out 13 games, I'm pretty sure, with 40 games left to go in the season, and 11 of those 13 was due to an injury against Boston about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and now he's only allowed to miss 4 games, and I feel that he's gonna lose out on a max contract extension. He isn't a contract year, so he'll lose his max contract by missing those 4 more games. And he's also gonna lose first team All NBA, which is something he definitely deserves. I don't think anyone in the NBA or the NBA world would say that Tyrese Halliburton doesn't deserve an All NBA slot. So that's just like my opinion on the 65 games. And if you want to touch on it, you can. I just wanted to like get my opinion out there because I think it's a little wrong, and I think that they can add requirements, but they need to be changed around a little bit.
Yeah. So a few things I have to say about that is yes, I definitely do think there should be a requirement to getting awards in the NBA because I mean you just have to play more than a certain amount of games to be held to a standard that the rest of the players that did meet that requirement are. Like if you go out there and play good 40 games versus someone that played a little bit less good for double the amount of games, like I feel like you should be able to give them the credit. So I think a requirement should be in place for all the NBA honors, but I do agree with you that maybe 17 games is a little harsh, especially if uh, generational talents like Joel Embiid in one of the greatest seasons we've seen in a while gets injured and is not eligible for any honors. And like you said with Halliburton, I mean you're playing at all pro level, all NBA levels, and not being considered for it because of an injury that was out of your control. I do think is unfair, but I think the degree should be changed a little bit to make it. I would say probably 25 to 30 games is a little more reasonable.
Hmm.
But I do think that if you do miss less games, you should be looked at more. So if you do miss a lot of games, you had to have been really good when you were in.
Yeah.
So
And when I say like if Joel Embiid had gotten injured and it would have been a more serious injury, like a season-ending injury, then I would scratch him from the ballot. I get that. He definitely did not meet the requirements. But I also know that player health has been a concern lately because of injuries to players. And at the end of the day, the players now are bigger, stronger, faster, and our bodies have they can evolve a little bit, but they don't evolve like that. So there's gonna be injuries, so you have to account for that. And also, I don't know if a lot of you watch the NBA, but the NBA now is full of young stars. You got players coming off the bench that are fun to watch, electric to watch. So just because the NBA put this in there to keep their stars on the floor for more games, I think that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, there's so many bench players in the NBA right now that are super enjoyable to watch, super fun to watch, and they can play. So I say we just give them their keys when a star is injured, and just let's just go back to the way we were doing things.
yeah,
So to stay on the NBA topic, NBA All-Star ballots came out this week, and who was going to be on them. And we wanted to talk through some of them and who's more deserving than others, who should be starting, who should be on reserve, and also a couple snubs from each division. So we can start. LeBron James is obviously the captain of the West. Numbers are a little down compared to a lot of the people that got snubbed too, but at the end of the day, it's LeBron James. He's 39 years old, leading a Lakers team, averaging 24 a game, upwards of 10 assists. So not a surprise to see LeBron there. Nikola Jokic, it's Jokic. He'll probably be here for the next couple years and has been for the last couple years. He's an MVP caliber player and definitely deserves that. Kevin Durant is averaging, I think, about 26 and a half for the Suns. So makes sense. He's a generational talent that we've all seen grow up in the NBA. Definitely someone that deserves that. Luka. If it wasn't for LeBron, Luka would definitely be have a star next to his name and would definitely be the captain of this All Star team. And the last one, first time All Star, he's a starter, is Shea Gilgeous Alexander. Shea's had a phenomenal year. finally last year was a breakout year, but this is a year that really cemented that he's here and he's one of the young stars in the league, and it's fun to watch. So now we can go down the reserves. There's one. There's only really one player on this reserves list, maybe two, that I think definitely had a case to not being in it. But you got Steph and Edwards, which I think are locks, and then D Book I think is a lock. Karl Anthony Towns is one of the ones that I'm a little concerned about. And due to a lot of reports and stuff that came out, is coaches felt that the number two team in all of the NBA deserved two All Stars. But at the end of the day, I don't think Karl Anthony Towns is better than some of the players that got snubbed. And it's not like some of the players that got snubbed play on bad teams. Most of them do, and that does factor into the All Star game. But I I think that he could be replaced. Next is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Obviously, LA has been on this tear lately. They're second in the West. They're playing the best basketball that the Clippers have played since the early 2010s. Um, I think that they're both can have their case for it and definitely deserve it in a way.
Yeah, I think the starters I would say are pretty unanimous. I think all of them have had the years to back up their roster on the main the starters. But yeah, LeBron James being the captain is just a popularity contest at this point. I mean, I think you would give that to anyone but LeBron, but because he's LeBron, I think he got the captain. I mean, the captain it doesn't really matter.
No.
Really, it's just a doesn't do anything. So I mean, cool for him to get another one, but yeah, and like you said, a few guys on the bench. Cat, I would argue is kind of a selection that they probably forced because they are the second best team in the NBA in terms of record. And then I don't think, yeah, I think there's a lot of teams on here that have two All Stars per team, and I think it would be benefit from having one All Star for a team because I think I mean I know Anthony Davis and LeBron James are really good, but I mean the team itself is barely positive, and as of now, I don't even know if they're above 500 or not. But I think for a team that's not really doing much to have two All Stars versus some of these other teams mentioned,
Mhm.
I don't. I would think you would rather go with one of the subs you're going to get into, like Fox or Marketing.
Yeah. So my number one snub in the West is De'Aaron Fox. I think it's kind of messed up that he didn't even get looked at. This is now the third year where De'Aaron Fox has been outside looking in. Last year he made it off of injury reserves, but he's averaging 27, 5, and 5. I know there's a lot of players in the NBA this year averaging over 20 points a game, but I don't know how you can tell De'Aaron Fox, who plays on a good Kings team, uh, that he's not going to be in the All Star game when he's going out there and putting up 27, 5, and 5. And then next would be Laurie Markkinen. The West is snubs are not as great as the East, but Laurie's averaging 29 and 23 and 9 on a team a little bit below 500, so that definitely hurts him there. I think him just being the number one option on the Jazz really is what propelled him up here into this many votes, anyways, and got him in close to the All Star game. But then the next one is one that it's not necessarily a snub because he's new to the scene. Alfred Sengun had a great rookie year last year. This year he's coming in averaging 21, 9, and 5. I think he's only one of two players in the NBA averaging 25 and 5. I mean, 28 and 5, and that is him and Nikola Jokic, which that's great company to be with. First
Yeah,
off, so De'Aaron Fox getting taken out, in my opinion, though, from Karl Anthony Towns is kind of bad and kind of not a good look. And looking at this West All Star roster, there's no one on injury reserve right now or on the injury list, so De'Aaron Fox probably will not get in on an injured spot.
yeah. I just looked up some stats for Anthony Davis. I mean, no Anthony Davis hate or anything. He's a great player, and I don't think that he should be off this list. But um, I would argue that he is the second to LeBron on the. I mean, I think LeBron just has a overall just like a better playmaker in terms of distributing the ball.
LeBron's getting the ball in crunch time.
Yes, that
Yeah.
as well. And I think with Anthony Davis, he's averaging 24, 12, and 3. I mean, those are good numbers, but I think De'Aaron being the number 1 on his team and a Kings team who is obviously in the playoffs right now. I think they must have 30 wins on the year, and versus a team in the Lakers that are struggling to stay above 500. So I just don't think they're giving other teams a chance to pick their best player on their team as one of an All Star.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to touch on the West All Stars. Um, Victor Wembanyama, obviously not named an All Star, having a phenomenal rookie year. I'm not gonna sit here and say he was deserving of being an All Star because that's not what I'm trying to put out there. But I just wanted to recognize him a little bit. Six players in the NBA are averaging uh, what I said, 20, 10, and 5. And those five of the six players all made All Star games. Wemby being the only one that didn't. I'm not saying he deserved it. I think that the West is stacked, and I think he's a young guy, and he's gonna have his spans of years where he's making it every single time. I just wanted to recognize like what we're watching right now. I know the Spurs are not a great team, but if you ever tune into them, watch Victor because it's an enjoyable watch. Now on to the East. The East has a little bit more controversy than the West. The West has a lot more of the high caliber players. The East has more of the grit and grind players, so you can definitely miss and match some of them. But we're gonna start East captains Giannis, obviously deserving, has been great for many years now. Jason Tatum, deserving. Joel Embiid, obviously my MVP frontrunner. He's deserving. He probably will not be able to make the All-Star game after that left meniscus surgery he just got the other day. So one of the snubs that we bring up will get picked to take his spot. And then Tyrese Halliburton, as we said, deserving. And then last on the starters is Damian Lillard. This is one that got NBA media a little bit of an uproar. It's one that they didn't think was deserving. Coming from the second best team in the East, it's okay, but I mean, I think even Jaylen Brown has a better case to be there than Damian Lillard. But if you have anything to say about the starters, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Giannis, Tatum, Embiid, and Halliburton locks to be the starters. They've played good all year. They deserve it. But like you said, Lillard, I don't have a problem with him being in the All Star selection, but him being a starter, I think, is offensive to let's say Brunson, Mitchell, and I'd say Maxey too. And you could even make a case for Brown. I have not watched the NBA as much as I should, but in the games I have watched, Lillard just was not as impressive as the three players I just mentioned. I mean, obviously you're talking about Donovan Mitchell on this tear that he's been having, and Brunson. He is one of the reasons that the Knicks are having a good of a year as they are right now, and I think those either one of those three are twice as more deserving as Lillard is. But um, another few that we'll get into is like Bam Adebayo. I don't watch the Heat play very much, but I have not heard anything of him all year, so that was a
Hmm.
bit concerning. And I'm very happy for I don't even know how to say that guy's name on the Magic.
Paulo Banquero.
Paulo. Sorry, man. I don't even know you. But I did watch him. I did watch the Magic, not because I wanted to watch the Magic, but it's because I was watching the Cavs, and he was definitely the best player on the team. So I obviously deserves that there too.
Yeah. So the Damian Lillard notch, like I said, he does deserve to be an All-Star. I would give it to Jalen Brunson or Donovan Mitchell. It's a toss-up. I know if Jalen Brunson wouldn't go out and say I deserve to be a starter because he's just thankful enough to be in the All-Star game in general. But the Knicks right now, the hottest team in basketball. I would put them ahead of the Clippers. Brunson is leading that team. I could pull up the stat, but I'm sure he's averaging 35 plus over this last 10 to 12 game span. You could say the same about Mitchell too. Cavs being the second or third hottest team in basketball right now, and Mitchell is also leading that way. So I think Lillard, yes, he's a great player. He's Dame time. Definitely not ahead of Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell right now at this point in the season, and they definitely should get the All-Star starter spot. But with Joel Embiid going out, we're going to get another forward up there. So people like Bam Adebayo and Paolo Banchero or Julius Randle will all have the opportunity to jump up there and grab that starting spot. I want to talk about people that I think are on the edge, and there's definitely two East snubs that I think definitely deserve to be in this All Star game. Um, Bam Adebayo is having a Bam type season. I think his numbers are maybe around the same as they were last year. Um, and Paolo Banchero, yes, he's leading the Magic, averaging about 24 a game. I think he's having a great season, great second season. This is someone coming into the league, coming out of Duke, that we knew was going to be good. And to see him make an All Star game in his second year is great. But Scotty Barnes averaging 28, 5, and 2 blocks. Fourth quarter, Scotty, he's averaging 10 points in the fourth quarter this year. I think he's been great for the Raptors, and he's the only thing keeping the Raptors afloat right now from being a tanking team. And the next one is one that is kind of insulting. So um, we talked about De'Aaron Fox getting snubbed at 27, 5, and 5. Trae Young is averaging 27 and 11 right now, and is getting snubbed, I think, for the third time in his career from an All Star game. Um, that is crazy. I don't know how you can look at a dude that's going out there and putting up 27 points tonight and 11 assists and tell him he's not going to make an All Star game. Yes, the East has really good guards, but at the end of the day, I classify Jalen Brown as a small forward and throw Trae Young in there as a shooting guard, and you got your roster. So that's all I got to say about the East. You want to talk about your snubs?
Yeah. So I did while you were talking. I looked up Bam's stats on the season. So he's averaging 20, 10, and 4. That I mean, averaging a double double is impressive, and I think that probably does deserve an All Star spot. But I think you could definitely make a good case for Scotty, and definitely could make a good case for Trae. I think probably one of the things that is keeping Trae is the field goal percentage. He's shooting 43% overall, and I think that to the people who um, get to make the decisions on who are all stars. I think that's probably what kept him out for
Mm-hmm.
them. But I definitely could. I think I probably would have put Trae Young um, over Bam, and then I don't know if I would have put Scotty in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's having a great season, like you said, but there's just so many good team or so many
Mm-hmm.
good players in the East. It's definitely hard to make these selections just because of how many good players there are, and I think obviously with the NBA growing it the way it is, more players are averaging more every year, so it's only going to get harder. So
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate for some of these guys who definitely would have deserved it in a different year, but this year's pretty stacked. So.
Yeah. One more thing before we move on to the Pro Bowl recap. Joel Embiid's going to be out for the All Star game, so someone's going to take his slot. And then Julius Randle's been out with a little bit of a bug, a little like a nagging injury. He should be back by the All Star game, so um, only one of those two will be able to get in. If they're filling positions, it'll probably be Scotty Barnes, but Trae Young, they both deserve it. So whoever they take, I'm cool with. Um, Pro Bowl, it's all you.
Okay, so um, I watched a little bit of the Pro Bowl. I watched the first half of it, and the second half I watched clips on Twitter of. Um, I do appreciate. I respect them trying to change the Pro Bowl to make it more friendly to the fans without having to do contact because that's obviously what we all want to see. But um, I think the stuff they did on Thursday and the skills challenges definitely gets a lot of people involved that wouldn't be if it was just a normal game. So I do respect what they're going with that, but I mean it's a far cry from your average All Star game that you've seen in like the late 2000s with people like Sean Taylor laying out punters and stuff like that. But um, what I saw is the NFC complete dominance on all stages. They won more of the skills, and then they outright won the game. So um, Eli Manning is now Peyton's older brother. So
Yeah,
if
I got a couple things to touch on the Pro Bowl. I know you have mixed feelings about it. I think it's definitely better than an NBA All-Star weekend. In my opinion, I think it's more enjoyable to watch. I think having all of the skill players is how many skills challenges on that Thursday night is a little weird. If they move it closer to the actual game on Sunday, maybe like Saturday night, I think it would feel more of like an NFL Pro Bowl weekend, and you can make a bigger event out of it instead of separating them so far apart. Uh,
yeah, I
the
definitely agree with that.
the game wise, um, it's hard to watch when the refs don't even know what they're doing. You got Peyton on live television saying that these refs don't know coverage and they're not doing their thing right. Um, the concept is cool and I really like it and I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching the O linemen, their agility challenges and their tug of war. But if the NFC just keeps destroying the AFC like they are, this is just gonna get out of hand. It's not gonna be fun to watch.
I just it's cool to see players that you wouldn't see during a season, like the linemen and the special teamers, have like a platform to show who they are, without having to go on a 60-minute all-out war 17 times a season. So, like just seeing people having fun,
Hmm.
and just enjoying a break and being recognized for being one of the best, I think is really cool. And as long as the AFC can make it competitive, it'll be good
Yeah.
for years to come. So
Like you said, I think the players are having fun. It looks like they're having fun on the TV, so it's all that cares. All right, so new thing this week, we're gonna do these like every once in a while, every couple months. But we're doing top fives, so um, we're doing three different positions in the NFL. Griffin chose his top five. I chose my top five. A little bickering back and forth, probably, especially on some of them. But I think we're just gonna get right in. We'll start. You'll say your first. I'll say my first, and we'll just go down the list. We're starting with wide receivers.
okay, so my number one wide receiver is Tyreek Hill, and then my number two is Devonte Adams. Number three is Justin Jefferson. Four is Jamar Chase, and five is CeeDee Lamb. I have honorable mentions: Keenan Allen, AJ Brown, and DJ Moore.
So I'm gonna jump your one and I kind of have the same first four as you. I have a little bit mixed around. I'm going JJ at one. Obviously injury prone year, so we know what he can do. Tyreek Hill at two. I think we're blessed with wide receivers right now, approaching that 2K mark the last 3 years. So Jamar Chase at three. Jamar has a lot better year if Burrow's healthy for more of it, but with an injured Burrow for the first part of the year, and then Jake Browning, he still made do with what he had. Devonte Adams, everyone forgets about Devonte Adams, but he's still, in my opinion, the fourth best wide receiver in the league. He just plays on a team that is not great. And then number five, this is one that's tricky. You put CeeDee Lamb. I'm gonna put AJ Brown. If AJ Brown is in the right headspace and is not throwing a temper tantrum, I think he's the fifth best wide receiver in the league, and I think he gets open and I think he catches balls. It's just a matter of if he's in the mood or not. My honorable mentions, obviously CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, and then I put Cooper Kupp too. When we were making this list, I saw yours, and I was like, there's got to be someone missing. And I chose Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has had great years the last 2 years, and this year, obviously, injury the first part of the year, coming back, adjusting to Puka being as great as he has. But Cooper still had games. Cooper still had several 100-yard games coming back, so I'll put him at number eight as my honorable mention.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be the most we agree on.
Yeah.
Um, I just think the wide receivers are very clear cut on who I would say probably top 10. We could probably agree on.
Mhm.
Just with the seating in the top 10 is probably what we would disagree on. But um, I try to make my list not like time bias. I tried to make it like just over the last few seasons, maybe
Yeah.
instead of just this year. I know Cooper Cup. It was really hard to decide because I know Cooper. I mean, he had a crazy 2021 when they won the Super Bowl, and then uh, this year was injury prone and all that. But I mean, he's still a great guy. I probably would have put him as after DJ Moore.
Mhm.
Um, that's all I have to
I
add.
just think coming back from injury, to a basically completely different ran offense through Puka, like his spot had been filled. Having to come in and to adjust to that, I think
Yeah.
his skill is still there. I think just give him an off season of adjusting with McVay, and he'll be right back on track. Running backs. This is one that we agree on all but one. So if you want to kick it away.
So my number one is CMC. The year he's been having with the 49ers ever since he got traded to, he's just been unbelievable. Not even close. He is the number one. Number two, not biased at all, Nick Chubb. We'll see how he deals with that knee injury he suffered last year in Pittsburgh. If I know anyone that can come back from a terrible knee injury twice, it would be Nick Chubb. Three, I have Saquon Barkley. I am not going off of numbers. I'm just saying pure skill with him. He's on a Giants team that nobody wants to be on, and I think if you put him behind any other offensive line, he's going to have way better numbers than he does. Aaron Jones. Uh, I've liked Aaron Jones ever since the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams years in 2020, 2021, where they made it far. And they had good years. He's just a very solid guy to turn your offense around, and especially when this team is this young, they definitely need a guy to lean on that can always get them 4 to 5 yards, and I think he's that guy. And number five, I have Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, injuries and the whole contract thing earlier this year kind of hindered his stats. But a healthy Jonathan Taylor is definitely, I'd say, top three running back in the league. So if he can get back to that, he will definitely go up on my list. And then honorable mentions, I have Derrick Henry, obviously still a good running back, but the last few years have been a lot of inconsistency, and I just don't think he's as good as these top guys I've mentioned. Austin Eckler, he's not really a running guy. He got most of um, his stats from receiving in the backfield, and I think that's what he's good at. I mean, he's still a good running back. It's just this last year was not very good for him in a struggling Chargers team, so I couldn't put him in the top five. And then I had Jamar Gibbs, who had obviously a great year with the Lions this year. Him and Montgomery being a two-headed monster in the backfield, and I think you give him a little more time to develop, and he'll definitely be on this list.
So, looking at it, we have the same top eight guys, just a little bit of a different order. One and two is the same. CMC and Nick Chubb, as you mentioned, CMC since he's gotten traded and before he got traded, he was still the number one running back in the league in my opinion in Carolina. But um, since the trade, he has separated himself from number two by a lot. The masses he scores in, the efficiency he has is insane. And then Nick Chubb number two. I don't think any of the other running backs on this list work harder, in my opinion, and that's coming from a Bengals fan. But I would keep him there. And then at number three, this is one where Griffin's going to get a little antsy about it, but I did put Derrick Henry. Um, Griffin talked about the inconsistencies. Yes, there are inconsistencies, but there still is a lot of productivity that he has put together the last couple years. And one thing I think that has lowered him on this list and on certain analysts and certain people is the fact that it's like done in the shadows. No one talks about the Tennessee Titans. To be honest, if you would have asked me 3 months ago how Derrick Henry was doing, I wouldn't even have. I would have been under the impression he wasn't playing anymore. No, that's a lie, but that's just like saying I just don't watch Titans games, and the social media doesn't post anything about Derrick Henry. So I still think he's a hard runner. Being that big, um, is super effective, and he can throw passes. He has several touchdown passes in his career.
Okay, I'll
So
give you that one. But that's a quarterback thing, not a
shut
running back
up! No,
thing.
no, 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 no. So fourth, Jonathan Taylor. This well, 4 and 6 for me was a flip flop. Was teeter totter between Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. Griffin said he didn't want to go off the numbers, but I'm gonna go off the numbers. Taylor had about 150 less rushing yards than Barkley this year on like 70 less um, touches, which makes sense because Jonathan Taylor injured at the beginning, not injured, well, sort of injured at the beginning of the year, and also had the contract disputes. So he joined the Colts a little later on in the year. Number 5, Aaron Jones, as Griffin said. Um, Aaron Jones is one of those guys that's quiet, works in the dark, and just goes out there and does business. And if you're a Cowboys fan, you know uh, Aaron Jones isn't someone to mess with. Honorable mention Saquon Barkley, as Griff said. Uh, this is one that I might be recency bias, but rookie Jameer Gibbs, dog. That's all I gotta say. He wasn't the number one back for them this year. He was definitely more of a receiving back, not a running back. But at the end of the day, he did what he did, and he got the Lions where they went. And then eighth, Austin Eckler. If you would have asked me a year ago where Austin Eckler would be on this list, I would put him at 2 or 3. But
Yeah.
we've talked about in the past a couple episodes about how it looks like Austin Eckler doesn't even want to run, doesn't even want to play. He gets the ball and it looks like he's just done. Like I know he came off of a little injury, but he's gonna have to step it up this year to prove to a lot of people um, that he's still as good as he was. And that's my list. I know we had the same 8, but we had a little bit of conflict there with some of
Yeah,
them.
and I'm gonna go into this a little bit. Yeah. So my argument for Derrick Henry not being on my top five, um, obviously had one of the greatest running back seasons in 2020, and then that 2 year stretch from 2019 to 2020. Arguably, not even arguably, he was the best running back. Um, the Tennessee Titans ran through him, and that's how they won all their games. Tannehill, because of the insane running back that they had, Tannehill was able to just make the game managing throws, and he wasn't. The box was loaded, so he was able to make some throws that he wouldn't if he didn't have Derrick Henry. So I think just the whole team benefited from him in those 2 years. And then you look at when the team wasn't as wasn't so solid as it used to be, and Henry's numbers have went down drastically. Um, I would say one of the most important things I have against him is his yards per rush. He gets more carries than anyone in the NFL, and it's not even close when he's healthy. Like he gets the ball so much, and for numbers, he's averaging I think 4.3 yards a carry in the last 3 years, and that's to me that's not a good running back. You can blame the offensive line all you want, but I don't think the offensive line changed enough in one season from 2020 to 2021 to have that bad decrease in a year. So I don't think he's a top five guy. He's getting older, and I think some of the other guys I mentioned are going to take a spot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna end it off here. One other thing. So I know because we talked about this before when you were giving me crap about Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry's this past year averaged 4.2 a carry, which is obviously not actually not even obviously that's what he's averaged throughout his whole career. He maxed out at 5.1 during his 2000 yard year. He still ran for almost 1,200 yards this year. If you look at players like Barkley and Aaron Jones, Barkley averaged 3.9 yards a carry, which obviously we talked about the bad O line, but the Titans have that struggle too. And then Aaron Jones too averaged 4.3 yards per carry this year too. So I know it's all recency bias. I not recency bias. I know you don't like the Titans and you don't like Derrick Henry, so I know we're gonna have a little bit of a difference on that. But I'm sticking with my list, and I say we just move on to quarterbacks.
Okay, we'll go for it.
It's all you.
So, obviously, number one, Patrick Mahomes. I was struggling a little bit with number two, just because I think it was just recency bias with how Lamar played in the championship game. But I obviously went with him for two after looking over the great season he had, and then I have Josh Allen in three, Joe Burrow in four. And listen, this one's gonna be not good.
It's no way.
And
It's just no way.
nobody's. I know. But I think a healthy Kirk Cousins is a top five quarterback.
I could see top 8 or 9. Dude, there's no way he is a top 5 quarterback when healthy. There's just no way. Like
You
when
have
you're when
you have the the wide receiver room like he does. I think there isn't an
I
excuse to
think
be
we
top
have said recency bias about 30 times today, but I'm gonna say it again. The recency bias for the last time we saw Kirk Cousins healthy was because he was throwing to one of the greatest wide receiver years of all time. And that's just because Justin Jefferson's a dog.
Listen, I know there's a lot of talk about the whole prime time and the consistency there is off, but he took a team this year that went, I think they were 0-3 or 0-4, and brought them back to relevance before he got injured. And
Okay.
that's hard to do in this league. And his numbers in are just way better than what the Vikings play. Looking back at last year's playoff game where they lost to the Giants, he played a very good game and lost due to his defense. And I feel like that's usually the narrative for him is he can play good enough to make it there, but the people around him just get worse when he gets in there. Obviously he's getting old, and there's questions with that, but P. Kirk Cousins is, I think, with that wide receiver core he has, is top five.
Okay. Whatever. Um. Obviously, 1 and 2 for us is the same. Patrick Mahomes. You can't look at him and say that what he's done with this wide receiver core this year isn't great and took them to a Super Bowl. So Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, MVP of the NFL this year. We'll see that on Thursday at NFL Honors. Number 3 for me is Joe Burrow. Joe had a rough start to the year with the calf strain and the calf injury, and then obviously the wrist injury. But when we see a healthy Joe Burrow, he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, and usually he's been a top 2 quarterback in the league. But Lamar's outburst this year and greatness has been way above what we could have expected. But Joe's definitely at 3 for me. 4 is Josh Allen. These next two you can probably say the same thing about, but just because of the turnover problem that Josh has, I think that's just part of how he plays. And if you're a Bills fan, you know this, and that's why you love Josh Allen because he goes out there and he makes plays for the team. But I don't think that's a concern for me. I think he's the fourth best quarterback in the league. Fifth, this one's hard for me. Um, Dak Prescott. Um, Throughout the year, Dak had his case for MVP, and I think he still does have a case for MVP. It's just not as outstanding as Lamar Jackson. But I could definitely see maybe this next guy squeezing in there, considering this next guy's a Pro Bowler. But honorable mention, I'm going to take Matthew Stafford, Pro Bowler again. Had a great season, kind of a quiet season as we talked. The Rams' is offense is great. I love how McVay runs it there. Um, Next honorable mention, this one, Jared Goff. I'm just taking the dude that he was traded for. Uh, I said at the beginning of this year, I have it in words that the Lions would be good if Jared Goff is good. So the Lions were good, and Jared Goff did exactly what he needed to. I know he's thrown to Laporta and St. Brown and Williamson uh, and Gibbs out of the backfield, but Goff had a great year, and I think he deserves that honorable mention. And then my last one is C.J. Stroud. Uh, one of It's going to go down as probably the greatest rookie quarterback season of all time. And we've talked about on here that if it wasn't for CJ, then Puka would definitely win Rookie of the Year. But CJ Stroud is definitely, in my opinion, a top 10 and a top 8 quarterback in this league. So those are my honorable mentions. I know you wanted to say yours.
Yeah, I completely forgot to list my honorable mentions when I first went over the list. I have C.J. Stroud. Obviously, had one of the craziest rookie seasons of a quarterback we've seen in recent memory. making it look easy against my Browns, especially. Uh, you have Dak Prescott. He has the regular season stats to argue for an MVP, but just when you need him most in the playoffs, he just kind of goes away, and I think that's not going to change anytime soon. And I have Brock Purdy as the final honorable mention. I know he gets a lot of shit for being just a game manager behind a bunch of all stars, but in order for the 49ers to make it to the Super Bowl, you have to have some sort of consistency at quarterback. And I think that he's played well enough all year to be considered a top 8 quarterback.
Yeah. Um, I'll talk on Brock Purdy too. He's definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. If we had four honorable mentions, he would be number four. And I know that Cam Newton's not watching this, but bro, you are the biggest clown for clowning Brock Purdy, the amount that you do, considering you're not on an NFL roster. So that's for beside the point. Into our weekly game. Uh, Podcast is almost over, but last week we implemented this new weekly game. Both scored zero, so we're gonna change how we do that a little bit. We still have our Super Bowl pick thing, so we'll update you on those next week. Um, so now how we're doing is we're gonna pick three sports in the week. This week's NBA, NHL, and NCAA basketball men's. You pick two games that you think someone's gonna win. If they're the underdog, then you get 200 points. If they're the overdog, you get 100 points. If they're the favorites, you get 100 points. And then we'll keep you posted. We're gonna social medias will go up this week, and then we'll keep the points posted there throughout the week. And we'll also let you know at the end of every pod what the standings are and who's standing where. So first is NBA. I'm taking Bills over Grizzlies on Thursday night. I mean Bulls over Grizzlies on Thursday night. I think the Bulls have been on a tear lately. Cody White's had a breakout year. Zach LaVine's obviously out for the year, but he's been dealing with that injury. So DeMar DeRozan, he's been playing great too. Grizzlies had 12 players on the injury report last night, so don't expect them to win. This one's kind of a 50-50. I'm taking Lakers over Pels on Friday. I think the Pelicans are good. Zion's playing great, but I think the Lakers need to catch a stride now before the All-Star break, and I think it needs to start now. So I'm taking them over the Pelicans.
So my NBA games, I'm taking the Cavs over the Kings. That's actually happening tonight. I think the Cavs are like 4 point favorites, but I definitely wouldn't count out the Kings. So I would say this is more of a coin flip. I think really two good teams, but I think the Cavs just on their win streak get it done. And then on Saturday, I'm taking the Dallas Mavericks over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Um, there was no reason for this. I just thought that they one of the best games probably this week is going to be between those two, and I think Luka will just have a really good performance and get him another win. So
All right. NHL, obviously a sport we're trying to get more familiar with. I'm pretty familiar with the Stars and I love hockey, but the NHL this week, I'm starting out with Vegas over Arizona. I'm taking the defending Stanley Cup champs to beat Arizona. Um, Hopefully it works. They should be favored in that game. And then I'm taking Montreal over Dallas. The Canadians have been playing really good this year, if I'm not mistaken. And um, Dallas had a great year last year, but I'm taking Montreal over them.
yeah, so my NHL picks, I'm going to take the Avalanche over the Rangers. Two really good teams in the NHL. Um, I think the Rangers were favored only because it was at home. They were about zero point 0.5 favorites, so it's a very even matchup. I took the Avalanche because I feel like they're gonna run spoiler and win away. And then another one I have is the Wild over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, the Wild are under 500, and the Penguins are a little bit over. So I decided to go with an underdog pick there, and I hope the Wild can win so I can get some bonus points for an underdog.
All right, and then last NCAA basketball. I stayed kind of with two favorites here. Starting out with Arizona over Utah. Utah's had a great year. I think they're 15-6. Not better than Arizona, led by Caleb Love, averaging 18.5. So I'm going to take Arizona over that in that Pac-12 matchup. And then my last pick of the day would be San Diego State over Nevada. San Diego State's ranked number 24 right now. I think Nevada might be like 8-15, 8-14. Um, I was skeptical about this one. I know San Diego State's going to be favored by maybe a couple buckets or so, less than 10 for sure. I could have went and picked an underdog at this point, but I'm going to settle with my 100 points and I'm going to take it.
And for me, I am taking Kansas State over Kansas. That's a very big upset. I wouldn't say very big, but Kansas, obviously being the powerhouse they are, that just beat a really good Houston team. Um, I just think that Kansas State's going to have their number. They did lose against an unranked opponent earlier, like probably a week or two ago. So I think there's definitely a recipe to beat this team, and I think they're going to figure that out. And then taking South Carolina over Old Miss. South Carolina's top 15 this year, very very solid team, and they favored it over Old Miss. So I was going to take my 100 there.
Yeah, Ole Miss had a great start of the year though, so I'd watch out. Um, that's all we got for you guys. We'll be back next week. Episodes go out every Tuesday. Social medias will be up here soon. Make sure to watch the YouTube shorts we drop midway through the week too. Have a good one.